When DMs wrap up their Curse of Strahd campaign, I can understand if there's the opportunity to want to take a break or want to do something different. Maybe someone else DMs. Maybe you do something that isn't a horror-themed campaign, something a bit more light-hearted. Maybe you start again from the beginning with player 1 characters rather than carrying on with the ones who've just finished Curse of Strahd. Completely understand that. But if you're anything like me, when I finished Curse of Strahd, I said to my players, do you want to do more domains of Dread like Barovia and explore some more and hop some domains and free some other lands and defeat more Dark Lords? And my players thankfully said, yes, please. This video, I'm going to talk to you about ways you can try and sprinkle some hooks and seeds into either Curse of Strahd, if you're still running Curse of Strahd, if you're watching this and you are in the middle of running Curse of Strahd and you're trying to think of what to do next, or maybe you haven't even started Curse of Strahd yet and you're thinking way ahead. This will give some hints and some ideas of things you can do to try and get the players thinking about, there's more places like Barovia. Or if you've finished Curse of Strahd, you've already done the epilogue, the heroes have gone home, maybe they were from the Sword Coast and they've just gone back to the Sword Coast. There's ways as well that you can sort of bring them back to the domains of Dread. And that's what this video is going to cover. Greetings fellow Mist Wanderers, my name is Steve Morgan and this is DM of the Mists, covering all things Curse of Strahd and Ravenloft. This is a Ravenloft video because it's talking about how to get your campaign going to a Ravenloft campaign after Curse of Strahd, but I guess it's a Curse of Strahd video as well. I think this might be my first video that kind of blurs the boundaries and covers both. And so as I said, the idea of this video is to kind of give you hook and seed ideas for continuing with a Ravenloft campaign after Curse of Strahd. Even if you haven't done Curse of Strahd and you want to do a wider Ravenloft campaign, this might still help. And I did say in the introduction that if you're in the middle of running a Curse of Strahd campaign, or you're in the early stages of running a Curse of Strahd campaign, it's a lot easier to put hooks and seeds into it. But even if you finished it, that's fine as well. I'll try and include as many hooks and ideas as possible. This first thing I'm going to talk about, which will be a few minutes, we'll be talking about, it only works if you are currently running Curse of Strahd. So if you've already finished Curse of Strahd and you're a DM that fits that bracket, you might want to skip ahead. I put timestamps in the video description and you should see the little bar where you can skip ahead. So feel free to skip ahead to the next section or two, because this may not necessarily apply to you. But the easiest way to try and get players thinking about, there's more Domains of Dread out there, is if you introduce a new PC who is from the Domains of Dread. I was very lucky that in the middle of my campaign, one of my players, her partner, wanted to join us with a PC. And they wanted to be a paladin, and their backstory was basically they are from somewhere, location TBC, and just a few notes. They had an adopted daughter, they were an air genasi, and they also had a fire genasi and an earth genasi as fellow knights, fellow paladins. And because the player was vague on where they wanted to be, they probably thought, somewhere from the Sword Coast, it doesn't really matter, I'll worry about that later. I turned around and said to them, how would you feel if your paladin was a Talon soldier from Falkovnia, which is a land that suffers from monthly zombie sieges, and you've got a boss from hell called Vladaska? What do you think of that? And thankfully the player said, that sounds really cool. And so what happened was when this PC was introduced, they were able to say, I'm from another Domain of Dread. And it was a natural progression that once they defeated Strahd and were able to leave Barovia, that player on that PC said, I want to go home. I want to go back to Falkovnia. And that was, they did do a pit stop somewhere else, but that was their first place they wanted to go to. I've actually done a video, it's over an hour long, of how I ran Falkovnia, covering quests before the siege, how I ran the siege itself, and so on. What stat blocks I use for various NPCs and all of that, and what monsters I included, what types of zombies. I'll do the thing where a box appears and you can watch that if you want to. One thing I'll stress if you do this approach is I think this only works if you introduce this new PC mid-campaign. I wouldn't do it at the beginning of a Curse of Strahd campaign where somebody's entering Barovia and for the first time. I think what works really well when you're introducing Curse of Strahd is when you have PCs who are from, say, somewhere like the Sword Coast, or the Eberron setting, or Greyhawk setting, what have you, and they just arrive and they're like, where the heck are we? What is this place? If you have a player who's from Barovia already, a PC I mean, if you have a PC who's from Barovia already, or they're from another domain of dread, it kind of takes the mystery out of things. It's like, oh yeah, this is Barovia, hi, I'll tell you all about it because I've lived here for so many years, or oh, I'm actually from Falkovnia and this is a domain of dread, da da da. I think that works well, and I'll get to that as my next point, if Ezmerelda and Rudolph van Richten reveal those things later on in the campaign. So I would say don't do it, don't have a PC when you're starting Curse of Strahd be from the domains of dread. I would introduce it one of two ways, either when a new player joins, which is what happened with me, or if you have a player whose PC dies and they want a new PC, whether that's because they don't want to accept a dark gift, if you're doing the whole dark gifts thing to bring them back, or maybe they're bored with their PC and they want to play a new race, class, whatever. And another thing to stress as well is only do this if the player wants it. You should work with the player to come up with this. If I just said to them, oh yeah, you're from Falkovnia, it's full of zombies, blah, 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 and my player might not like the sound of it, that's not very fair. So I was lucky that my player was game for it and kind of worked on their PC backstory together. I wouldn't like foist it upon them kind of thing. A few examples, if it helps, of classes and other backgrounds where you might be able to do this is if you have a player or a new PC that's a paladin or a cleric. Falkovnia, they could be a Talon soldier or a Talon priest, like the case with my Edge and RC paladin who joined mid-campaign. If they're a bard, they could be from Tarokka, that's a no-brainer, it's basically a domain full of bards. If they're a druid, they could be from either Tempest or Forlorn. I have very strong sort of druid ties to both of those domains. If they're a wizard or a sorcerer, they could be from Haslan. That makes a lot of sense, especially a sorcerer, where maybe they've been experimented on, and instead of needing a spell book, they can just cast magic innately. It's kind of inside of them. If they're a rogue, and especially a swashbuckler, Sea of Sorrows. That's another video I've done. I'll do the thing where a box appears. Depending on what device you're watching from, a thing might appear there. If they're a fighter, Valachan could work. Valachan's a video I want to cover soon. I'm actually, in the game I'm running at the moment, they're just finishing up in Valachan, so that'll be a how I ran Valachan video coming soon. Outside of classes, there's still ways you could make it work. A background, for example, if they're a noble, they could be from Borka. Borka is kind of like the land of nobles, so they could be somebody who's from Borka. Lineages as well. There are actually suggestions of domain tie-ins in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. There's 3 for each of the 3 lineages, but I'll give examples as well. If they're a reborn, they could be from Mordent. Makes sense, it's kind of the land of ghosts. Maybe they're a ghost from Mordent. If they're a Dhampir, they could be from Darkon, because there's the Karjat, the secret police that's made up of vampires and what have you. If they're a Hexblood, tie it to Tempest, because there's strong Hexblood ties to that. One thing I should have probably said earlier in the video as well is, how do you get them into Barovia? Well, in my case with the Paladin, he was near the border of Falkovnia fighting a bunch of zombies when he got sucked from the mists from Falkovnia to Barovia and then kind of just stumbled around Barovia for a bit until he was found by someone and led to the Blue Water Inn in Vallaki. That's another point I probably should have said earlier on. You need, obviously, it's all well and good you have these people who could be from Borka or from Haslan or from wherever, but that's probably how you get them into Barovia and into Curse of Strahd and into your game. Another idea as well, and this could work better, is if they already have a quite established backstory for their character, and perhaps their character, they're determined they want their character to be from the Sword Coast originally, is they could be a hero from the Sword Coast who gets spirited away by the mists, enters another domain, and then enters Barovia, and that way they've got the whole thing. Rather than being similar to the original PCs who entered Barovia being like, what the heck is this place? They might have been in another domain, and then they've got some knowledge about, oh yeah, there's a few of these domains, or yeah, I met some Vistani when I was in whatever domain it was, and they told me all about how the domains of dread and the mists work and all of that. Another option could be that you have Van Richten, Dr. Rudolph van Richten, or Ezmerelda Davenir tell the PCs and the players. Both of them are from the domains of dread originally. Van Richten is originally from Darkon and then lives in Mordent. I'm not sure where Ez is from originally. I do think she was with a Vistani group, or perhaps it's a Vistani group that isn't actually a Vistani group. I think Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft changed the lore, but I'd already established her lore from Curse of Strahd in my campaign when I was running Curse of Strahd, so I don't know it super well, the changes that he made to her. But anyway, the point I'm trying to get to is Van Richten and Ez are 2 people in Curse of Strahd who know about the domains, who, if the players meet them, might want to say there's actually people out there. Before I had my PC from Falkovnia join the campaign, Van Richten was the ally, the fated ally from the Tarokka reading in my Curse of Strahd game, and he mentioned he was from Darkon, that he lived in Mordent. I think Valachan got mentioned at one point. So the names of domains were being dropped. Azlin Rex got mentioned as well, who the Lich from Darkon. So there were people already being sort of name dropped and places being name dropped, and that got the players sort of thinking, oh right, there's more places out there. If you're rigging the Tarokka deck, if you haven't done the Tarokka reading yet, you could potentially have Van Richten or Ez be the ally. Even if they're not the fated ally, Ez is kind of an NPC that the players are likely to encounter multiple times. I think there's 4 different possible places she can appear. If memory serves, without looking at the book, this is a good test of my Curse of Strahd knowledge. It's Kresk, Van Richten's Tower, Argynvostholt, and Castle Ravenloft. I think that's right. I hope that's right. So there's multiple times they can bump into Ez anyway, and she kind of, I think a lot of people treat her as a drop-in, drop-out NPC where she might jump in and help and travel around with the players for a bit, and then maybe break off and do her own thing. And Rictavio, if he retreats to Van Richten's Tower, even if he's not the fated ally, they might still befriend Van Richten and work with Van Richten, but he just refuses to leave the tower because of his curse. When I was a player in Curse of Strahd before running it, this is how my DM handled it. He was kind of a distant ally, and we were able to use Van Richten's Tower as a base and a place to retreat to if things got hairy, but Van Richten refused to leave the tower and kind of just treated it as kind of his HQ. But in my game, when I was running Curse of Strahd, he was the fated ally, so I said, oh, curse be damned. Or more accurately, that he was like, oh, okay, the Vistani have said that, or this sort of mini prophecy has kind of said, I should help you, I'll, leave the tower and help you. And he travelled around with them. Okay, so that's if you're still running Curse of Strahd, these are the things you can do stuff. Now let's do stuff where maybe you've already finished Curse of Strahd, you've run the epilogue, congratulations, Strahd is defeated, the mist borders are open, and your players have gone back to their home, which presumably is the Sword Coast, unless you're using another setting or a homebrew world or what have you. Even if that happens, you could still have adventures continue and they get sucked back to the Domains of Dread. Perhaps they are visited by 1 of 2 or 3 groups of people. A Mist Wanderer from the Mist Wanderer section of Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft visits them. I probably wouldn't have it be Ezmerelda because I think the Curse of Strahd epilogue says she stays in Barovia. But it could be the Weathermay-Foxgrove twins, and that could be a really good way to introduce them. Perhaps they visit the players, the PCs, saying, have you seen Van Richten? He's missing. Last we heard, somebody said when Barovia got liberated that he left, but nobody's seen him since. We look after a shop in Mordent and we were concerned. So that kind of gives you a reason as well to go back. Maybe the players, the PCs think, well, we need to go back and find him. In my game, he was heading for his shop in Mordent and his home and was going to retire, but he got waylaid by the mists into Valachan and decided to stay in Valachan because he was curious about Chakuna's nature, the Dark Lord there. Instead of one of the Mist Wanderers, it could be the Vistani. Perhaps Madame Eva's group leaving Barovia comes to the Sword Coast or wherever it is, sets up camp just outside where the players are, whether that's in, say, if they've established a town. I know there's some people who do like Lost Mine of Fandalva before doing Curse of Strahd, that's what I did. And it could be that it's just outside Phandalin, the town. Or it could be outside Neverwinter, or it could be outside Waterdeep, wherever they have ended up after returning home. And she has a quest for them. Maybe there's a Dark Lord causing trouble. That could be another reason for the Weathermay-Foxgrove twins, actually. Maybe there's another dangerous Dark Lord and the people who vanquished Strahd, they plead for their help to vanquish another Dark Lord or 2. That could be quite a cool hook back into the Domains of Dread. And if it's not Madame Eva, it could be another Vistana seer. It could be, I'm prepping for Forlorn at the moment, and there's a Madame Ursula, or it could be another, there's a few from the Ravenloft lore. If you dig into like the Fraternity of Shadows website, Mystopedia, or the Ravenloft wiki, I'm sure you can find some other examples. Another Vistana seer pleads with the players to return to the Domains of Dread. Another group that could visit is the Carnival. You could have the Ravenloft Carnival arrive, and that's great because they could potentially, it's great, it kind of reminds them of what Ravenloft is like, and then the Carnival packs up, says, we're going back to the Domains of Dread, do you want to come? and then that's how they are led back to the Domains of Dread. That could be a really cool intro. I've done a video all about how I ran the carnival, what kind of stores I did in the Litwick market, what kind of adventures happened there, how I ran some of the NPCs. So again, I'll do the whole box thing a little bit easier. If in doubt, if none of what I've said so far works, I have 2 words for you. The Mists. In Curse of Strahd, in the hook section, there's one called the Creeping Fog hook, which is essentially the mists envelop the characters. Boom, they're in Barovia. You could do the same. You could have just your players are minding their own business. Maybe they think they're going to do some other quest back at home, and then the mists encircle them. And oh no, not this again. We're back in the Domains of Dread. And they appear in a domain of your choosing. Maybe it's the first domain you want to run after Barovia. I do have another suggestion as well. I'm going to be cheeky now, and I'm going to flog something I created and put on DM's Guild I'm very proud of. It's called the second Tarokka reading. If you've seen any of my other Ravenloft videos, it's likely I've mentioned this before. This second Tarokka reading, very similar to the one that Madame Eva gives to the players in Curse of Strahd, that leads them to the Holy Symbol of Ravenkind, the Sun Sword, etc. This second Tarokka reading, which you can tweak, but if you just use kind of the base, the default, it leads them to 3 magic items of your choosing and a fated ally spread throughout all the Domains of Dread. So this can be a great way to encourage them, perhaps the Vistani group. Or there's an NPC I've introduced in the second Tarokka reading who is a lone Vistana, like how Ezmerelda travels on her own, who gives them the reading, and they'll have at least 3 or 4 hooks then to go back to the Domains of Dread. They'll hear about 3 domains possibly, and a fated ally somewhere in the domains, and they've got to figure out the clues, much like they had to do in Curse of Strahd. But obviously that was limited to just Barovia. This is everywhere, and it covers all the domains, major and minor, in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. If they have this happen and it's not during the Domains of Dread, it could be the case that what I do at the end is there's no 5th card. The NPC, the Vistana seer who's given the reading, he drops the cards everywhere, says, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I made such a mess. Please step outside my wagon while I clean this up." And assuming your players agree to that and step outside the wagon and wait, mist surrounds the wagon, and when the mist goes, the wagon is gone. You could potentially do something similar where the mist surrounds not just the wagon, but the players, and when not only is the wagon gone, but they find themselves in a different land, perhaps a domain of your choosing, and that could be a good way to get them into the domains. Before making the second Tarokka reading, I actually gave a second Tarokka reading to my players. That's the inspiration for creating the product and putting on DM's Guild, was the fact that I ran it in my game and thought it was, enjoyed doing it so much and preparing it so much. I was like, I want to make this available for other DMs. Is in my game, it led, so they had the reading in Falkovnia, and the 3 magic items were in Falkovnia, the Sea of Sorrows, and the Carnival. And the fated ally was Jennifer, Weathermay-Foxgrove, and I had her in Van Richten's shop in Mordentshire in Mordent. So straight away they were like, right, okay, they had to finish up business in Falkovnia, and then they knew of 3 possible places. Well, they didn't know about, the clue didn't say Jennifer was in Mordent, it just said you're looking for a druid who's one of twins, and they found out from Ezmerelda, hey, that sounds like my friend Jennifer. But they knew of a lighthouse somewhere, and then Ezmerelda told them that might be the Sea of Sorrows, and they heard about a carnival. So they had a few seeds and hooks, places to go to immediately after Falkovnia. And that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you have already done a post-Curse of Strahd, or if you're doing a post-Curse of Strahd Ravenloft campaign and you used a different hook to what I used, or have different ideas, please drop comments. I'd love to see them. Or if you want to discuss, if you've got an idea or you want more information about what I've said in this video, like, oh, I'm thinking of having this PC who's a, I don't know, fighter from Valachan, to use that example from earlier, but you want more ideas or specifics, feel free to drop a comment. I try and respond to as many as I can. I'd love to try and help you. I love Ravenloft, I love talking about it, I love making these videos, and love helping people to run Ravenloft campaigns and add all this to their games. The next videos I want to do, I teased in the last few videos that I'm going to do so I've done a few deep delves into the domains of, I've done Falkovnia, the Carnival, and the Sea of Sorrows. I really want to do Daemon Leo and Valachan next. A friend of mine, I'm hiring him, he works in video and audio production. I'm hiring him to give me some pointers on how I can make the quality of these videos better. And I don't really want to do a video that might be like an hour long and put it out, and then he says, oh yeah, you can trim loads of time off this. So I'm kind of, those videos I'm probably going to hold off until I've had that chat with him in the next few weeks. And then, so if you're waiting for those videos, I'm sorry, they're probably going to be another few more weeks yet, but we'll see how it goes. And then I'm definitely, once he's given me some pointers and some help, I'm going to prioritize those videos, and the quality will hopefully be better, because I am just some guy doing it out of his, well, not out of his bedroom, but out of his home office, rather than being some sort of YouTube guru. I'm still very new to this. I'm still learning and getting better with each video. And we'll leave it there, I think. See you at the next one. Please subscribe if you want to see more videos from me. Thank you, Miss Wanderers.